Welcome to this week's SIIA Executive Spotlight. I am delighted to be joined today by Clayton Whitfield. Clayton is the Vice President of Business Development at SaaS Optics, and SaaS Optics provides a cloud-based financial solution for subscription businesses. In fact, their platform provides subscription billing, revenue recognition, and subscription analytics. So, Clayton, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate it, Rihanna.
Now, Clayton, SaaS Optics is built specifically for B2B SaaS businesses. How is a financial operating system different for B2B SaaS businesses compared to B2C or, say, non-subscription business model? And why did you specifically take that direction with the company?
Okay, so yeah, there are definitely some, from a financial operations perspective, yes, B2B and B2C can be very different. The attributes that, one of the most obvious ways that B2B and B2C differs is in a B2B business, you tend to have sales reps involved working deals and things like that, working with customers and even sometimes purchasing departments and things like that. And you get a lot of, what tends to happen there is you get a lot of negotiated behavior. Customer A negotiates for monthly billing, customer B negotiates for quarterly, customer C wants to sign up now, be billed annually, but not start for a month and things like that. So you get a lot of that kind of behavior, and all of those things have an impact on both your financial operations and financials itself, from a perspective of billing and rev rec and metrics and KPIs and all the things that you need to track in your financial operations. So that's what you get, is a lot of impact from simply the dynamic of the business itself. You get a lot of negotiated behavior. Now, B2C, to be sure, has its own challenges. You tend to have like a high transaction volumes, and you tend to be charging monthly credit card charges, and every single month there'll be some that fail, right? People don't renew their cards or forget to update it, stuff like that. So you get a lot of things like that, but the transactions themselves tend to be simpler and a bit more unified. So from the billing perspective, just charge the cards every month. From the rev rec perspective, just add up all your charges and there's your rev rec. So, and I'm generalizing and simplifying, obviously, but the transactions do tend to be a bit more homogeneous, even though they're higher volume. So that's a major difference that has the financial operational impact. And as far as the reason we specifically went B2B with SaaS Optics is because of our experience running our previous B2B SaaS business. SaaS Optics is a direct outgrowth of what we knew was required to build scalable and strong financial operations in a B2B and SaaS or subscription business. And we knew there was nothing like it in the market, so we decided to build it.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about revenue recognition. What
Sure.
are some of the biggest mistakes that SaaS companies make in recognizing revenue?
So the biggest one I'd say that we see the most frequently is inconsistent and non-repeatable methodology for recognizing the revenues. And that can have a lot of causes, but the ones that we see most frequently are sort of a combination of two things. One is a lack of systems to consistently apply and manage the rev rec, and the other one is a lack of understanding of the rev rec rules. So you can imagine that the two of those things combined can really cause a lot of overhead in the rev rec issues, and or a lot of rev rec issues. That actually all goes kind of hand in glove with the other big problem that we see, which is relying for too long on spreadsheets to manage your rev rec. And what I mean by that is relying too deep into your evolution as a business on spreadsheets to manage your rev rec. And the reason for that is spreadsheets are sort of a natural go-to tool in financial operations. And they're awesome for financial modeling and calculations and things like that, but they're terrible, terrible, terrible at managing data. And good, consistent rev rec is really much more about managing the data than it is about making a bunch of fancy calculations. So you really need to manage the data. That's what good rev rec is. And often the other big problem with that is that companies really don't realize that they've waited too long or tried to ride the spreadsheet train for too long until they have a pretty rude awakening. And that's usually something like a failed audit or a big valuation haircut in an M&A transaction or an investor transaction, things like that. And sometimes it's the other one we realize we run into is the horrifying realization of somebody in the financial team that they're slowing down the business. Because everything they do or most everything they do has to go through the spreadsheet. So they don't realize that their lack of throughput is slowing down the business. Their lack of throughput is an overall impact of the business, and we see that one a lot too.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper into, you mentioned M&A transactions, valuation processes and stuff, and the importance, right, of managing that data. So in an M&A transaction or valuation process, the financials are obviously examined with a fine-tooth comb.
Yes.
Where do you see companies falling short or failing to have accurate financial data? And what do you think they can do to better prepare for a possible transaction?
All right. So it's pretty similar to the above. It's the inconsistency in the rev rec is a big stumbling block and an outright deal killer, frankly. A lot of the M&A people that I talk to will tell you that busted rev rec is the number one deal killer that they run into. And again, this typically arises from spreadsheets and a lack of systems and processes. And you kind of have to think, I think if you're in your financial operations, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the acquirer in their position. They're digging through financials and looking at a company they're thinking about buying, and they all of a sudden see some signs of inconsistently applied rules or even outright incorrect data. So what do they think? They're human. So what do they start to think? They start to think, if this is wrong, what else is wrong? What else am I missing that might cause me troubles? And then what they start to do is control their risk. They start to think about ways they can control their risk. I really like this company, but I'm not sure about these numbers, so I'm spying a little bit of risk here. So what do they do? There's a couple of things they might do. One is, try to beat you up on the price, or, more holdbacks, more escrow, more earnouts, longer stuff like that. So they're going to start engaging in multiple ways to control their risk, or sometimes just walk away from the deal altogether. And that's the one that a lot of M&A guys will tell you happens a lot. This just kills the deal completely because they can't trust the revenues. So that's what you see is you get, and the result, that's often the result of, again, of spreadsheets and lack of systems in place. As far as what to do about it, get out of spreadsheets. Sooner or later, if you're in spreadsheets in a SaaS business, sooner or later, it's going to devalue your SaaS business. If that's what you're relying on for the core of your financial operations, it's going to devalue your business. And if you can't get out of spreadsheets right now, at least put some processes in place to QA your spreadsheets. So at the end of every month, treat it like a software release. Go have a written out process for the people in your financial operations to go in and test the spreadsheet and make sure it's correct. So treat it like a software release and test it. But I will say a warning for that, for those of you that might attempt to do that, is if you're going to expend that kind of energy and time, you do just as well to go and find a system and spend that energy and time implementing that system as you would to try and test your spreadsheet. I understand the realities of businesses. Everything is different. So get out a spreadsheet as quick as you can. If you can't do it right now, test it.
I think that's great advice. So maybe you can give some more advice to our entrepreneurs out there. I mean, you were one of the co-founders of SaaS Optics back in 2009. So you guys have been around about 7 years now. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are looking to launch and scale a SaaS company today? Because we know it's not easy.
That's right, it's not. And so this is definitely our bias, but it also happens to be true, what I'm about to say. Definitely our bias, but it also happens to be true. It's never too soon to get your financial operations buttoned up and built out correctly. And that means order management, billing and renewals, RevRec and KPI management, all that, and reporting and all those things. So in the beginning, you'll just be focused on the invoicing, right? That's what everybody's worried about. And that's understandable. The RevRec and all the other stuff kind of tends to take a back seat. It's very understandable, but what new companies should realize is it really should spend just a few more hours to build it all out. It really would take you another 10 hours to build everything out completely instead of just focusing on the billing and stuff. And if you don't know what to do, then hire a part-time CFO. They're everywhere these days, and they're very good, and they can help you for a few hours of their time. Pay them for it. It's worth every penny to get that stuff set up correctly. And if you think about it, it's not only never too early to do it, it's also much, much easier when you've only got a few customers versus when you've got a few dozen or a few hundred. It's way, way easier to get it done early. And if you get the other thing too, is if you get your financial operations built out correctly early, not only do investors take you more seriously, just, 1 second, go down the mental path of imagine how it differentiates you from other companies seeking capital at your same level. If you give investors bulletproof numbers that is supportable by all the data and the backing systems and all that stuff, think about how much that differentiates you from going to raise capital from another guy who's handing over a dusty old spreadsheet that's full of errors and things like that. It makes you look much more professional, and you'll have everything buttoned up and correct. So not only do investors take you more seriously, you give yourself the gift of better financial operations, and you protect the valuation of your business because investors are less likely to see you as a risky bet if you've got good buttoned up numbers. So that's it. Get it done early, and do. It's never too soon.
Fantastic advice. Clayton, thank you so much for your time and insights today. For more information on SaaS Optics and SIIA, please visit our websites and stay tuned for next week's Executive Spotlight.
Thanks, Rihanna.